takový jako Dorothe, že?
Taky si odpíšu ještě lidi možná.
Já si mi stalo.
Jo, tady škypám.
Jo, jenom vezmu sluchátka.
Jsme tak máme prostřed.
Tam všechno běží, nevím, jestli je tam tady směřovat, když...
Slyš, jo, už. Ještě sekundu, jestli můžete vydržet minutku. My jsme jenom vyřešili tady pár technických problémů a hned jsme u vás. Hello, everybody. I'm Jakub Tipka, founder of Academy of Safety. Our goal with the show and the company is to provide you with the information and the skills to elevate your level of safety and personal security. And I'm really excited today about our today's guest, Dorothe Trassl.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, it's my pleasure, like always. Can you share with us or explain to the audience in a nutshell what you do?
In a nutshell, okay. I'm a psychologist and yoga teacher. And in the past 20 plus years, I've actually worked mainly with people that are confronted with trauma, either with trauma in their life, big accidents happening, big personal encounters happening that are simply overwhelming for our capacities. But what I've also developed is strategies to not only release the trauma, but to prevent it in the first place. So how can we actually be, as human beings, connected to ourselves, our resources, our own inner safety, and create this, how can I say, this awareness that is actually always guiding us. Which situations are safe, where do we have to be careful, and what can we access, what resources do we have to deal with the situations, not from a survival mindset, but really from the fullness, from the connection to everything that we are.
Nice.
Yeah.
I have to say that I have been participated in several, maybe 2-3 workshops of yours, and for me it was like amazing experience.
Thank you.
I cannot say anything else just than to recommend to everybody to join it. And also your promoters are doing great job to promote all of your events.
Yes.
But when I check the comments in,
Mhm.
for example, you were hosted in Dušeka,
Mhm.
people were asking, how does it look in, on your workshops? What do you do with them and
Okay.
what to expect?
Okay. So the aim of the workshop is mainly self-help. So participants of the workshop don't come to use it on clients or something. We have a special therapist training for that. But people come to really release their own traumas and to learn how to regulate the nervous system. So how can I make friends with myself? So how can I be fully me, not throttled, not kept hostage by my past experiences, but how can I really walk on? Because things happen, we all know that.
Yes.
You know, I yet have to meet a person who didn't have a big accident, some big life happening, and something that is overwhelming for our capacities. I think everybody knows that. And at the workshops, it's usually a 3-day workshop. So first we create really a safe environment. Now, when we say that, unfortunately, there are really many people out there that have never experienced safety. Okay? They are living in a constant state of survival, of feeling threatened, of being anxious, of not feeling at home with themselves, not trusting other people, not trusting life. So the first day is really dedicated to accessing the feeling of safety and connection in ourselves and then also with other people. Because most people have been traumatized or have experienced the big things in their life in connection with other people. But the thing is, yes, we experience this with other people, but in that moment, we feel utterly alone. So, to actually release your trauma and to experience safety and connection, you first need to actually um, acknowledge that you feel alone, because these are the moments when we get traumatized, when we are alone, overwhelmed, disconnected, not supported. And so that first day is completely dedicated to really allow safety to be remembered, I would say. And from that place of safety and connection, we move into releasing all the stuck emotions that were never acknowledged, that didn't have a place, that we didn't know ourselves, or that were judged. And on the third day, it's basically a day of refill, of joy and celebration, because we also have to get used to the good things of life. Because when I've been living in trauma for a decade or 30 years or however long, then I've also disconnected myself from the beauty of life. Then I don't have this deep gratitude, that deep connection to life and to other people. I'm really lacking in positive experiences. So the third day is basically dedicated to not living with my trauma, because I've been living with that for so many years, but healing to be able to experience joy.
Nice,
As
nice.
sad as it sounds, a lot of people don't remember this deep joy.
I can just recommend it to everybody who would like to join it.
Mm.
Today's topic is kids, youth, and parenthood. You are mother of 3, if I'm
Yes.
right.
They survived me.
Yes. How would you evaluate or assess your parenthood, or, for example, from your point of view, what were the biggest challenges, and when you look back to all this journey? How
I
you perceive
mean,
it?
you have met my daughter, right?
Yes.
Zoe, yes.
The oldest one? Is it?
The middle one.
Middle one.
The
Okay.
blonde one is the middle one. So yes, I have 3 children, and the beauty is, or I'm very grateful that healing could happen with all 3 of them. So I made a lot of mistakes. I was a proper dysfunctional mom. I wasn't doing a good job, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was trying my best, obviously, as we all do, but I felt overwhelmed. I didn't know. I was a student when I had my first child, so I was not really prepared for having a child. My relationship was not really in a safe haven. There was no marriage in the background or anything. We just felt pregnant as students, and it was stressful. And I wasn't a healed person. I was still a handful. And I had another baby and a third baby, and my healing only started when my children were already a little bit older. So my son was already 2 years old, and my eldest daughter 9, and that's only when I started healing myself. So I had a long time of making a lot of good mistakes, and amazing how much can heal when you are able to embrace your own mistakes and really try to do better, not from the sense of knowing what to do now, but of connecting and feeling, connecting with the children and really finding out, okay, what happened to me in the past and how is that influencing my parenting? Because with all the experience I had in my life, I was trying to give my kids a lot of freedom. I was trying to be a friend to them and support them. What I did not know, though, is that I was not giving them enough guidance, to the point that my eldest at one stage came to me and said, Mama, please don't allow me to go to that party. And I was like, okay, so if you don't want to go, just don't go. But she said, no, I need you to forbid it so that I'm not responsible for that. That I can say, no, my mother said no. And then I got it and I said, okay, for my children to feel safe, they also need boundaries. They need to know where they are, where the boundaries are, what is a good idea, what's not a good idea. So guidance was lacking. So I was trying to catch up on guidance, and we were navigating together, the children and myself, what works and what doesn't. And especially my second one that you have met, she was loving the workshops I was starting to do.
The journey, you mean? Or...
my workshops, the
your
emotion work.
workshops, okay.
And she was really, really getting it, that we are all humans. We make mistakes.
Yeah.
There are ruptures in our relationships with our partners, husbands and wives, but also with our children. And the problem is not the rupture. The problem is not, sorry for my French, shit happens, but how do we make up? How do we repair then? How do we get back together? And with children, it's really about this dichotomy, this push-pull between staying connected to us and being in autonomy. So this internal struggle of I need safety and connection, and at the same time I need freedom and knowing my own powers. And this push-pull has to be navigated. We need to be aware of that, and we need to caretake both sides and always question, okay, is this now in my child a reaction because they don't have enough power and autonomy, or is it a reaction because they don't have enough connection? And funny enough, I thought I had a good connection with my children, but the connection to my children got much better when I was able to set boundaries and to hold the boundaries and to really, have a position that they can also rub up against. Because there's nothing worse than having cool parents who listen to the right music and you don't have anything to rebel against. What are you going to do then? So, yeah. And the tools that I have developed, or that I teach at the workshops, at the seminars, are really so that you can find your own connection and safety, and then be this partner to your children and to your partner, obviously, as well. And that includes emotions and communication. So how do we deal with emotions? How do we communicate them? And what do we do when our kids get emotional? Because this seems to be a problem for a lot of parents.
So what to do? If we can start from this point of view, what to do, for example, in different age stages. I've just also 2 kids, quite young, so I don't have so much experiences, my personal, with teenagers. And but are there any guidelines, tips, practical tips, what to do when?
Yes. What I think is good to keep in the back of your mind is that kids are developing.
Yes.
The nervous system, the brain of the children is developing. So for the very small children, 1, 2, 3 years, they have no ability to regulate themselves. They have weird stuff happening in the body and they feel about something and they express the feelings, as we know, very directly. And they don't know how to handle the feelings, the situations, and all of them. And they need us parents with a lot of connection, a lot of safety, to mirror the feelings back. So they need to, like what you're naturally doing with your baby, okay? When the baby is crying, oh, are you feeling sad? So you mirror them.
Yes.
So you really express the emotion and you mirror back to the child. So this way, the child can connect the dots in the brain. This sensation in my body is this feeling, and this is what mommy does and how we deal with it. The same when they are happy, like, the cooing when a baby is laughing, everybody does, this is normal, this is like normal human behavior, which is very important so children can connect to their own emotionality. Then when they grow a little bit bigger and they go to kindergarten, it's when rules start. And children very naturally have a curiosity about life and other people. And they know exactly that the rules that apply in our family are different to them of the neighbors, different to grandma, different to auntie, different to school. They know that. And for children, it's a good learning to be able to adjust to the different systems. They need support with that at times because they are still emotional beings. When they don't get what they want, they throw a tantrum. So all parents love the terrible threes when children are just throwing themselves about in the supermarket. But what the developmental goal is in that age period is I need to feel my feelings. I need to be able to say or feel what they are and know what it is. I am developing my own will and my own wishes, and I need the connection to that. So for the parents not to look at it as disobedience or the kids want to give us a hard time, but to know they are practicing.
Yes.
And it's their job to practice emotions. And it's my job to mirror the emotions back, to validate, to say, yes, you're angry. You wanted to watch another show. Yes, you are upset because you can't have the cookie or the chocolate in the supermarket. To say yes to the emotion. Yes, you are upset. Yes, you are frustrated. Yes, you are sad that you have to stop playing now. Yes, I understand you want to play on. And hold the boundary. We are now going home. You can have a sweet after dinner, or we are going home now. We will continue the play tomorrow. So validating the feeling with a yes, mirror it, whatever it is, sadness, anger, fear, whatever, and then hold the boundary. So yes, and then give an option. Because when you give an option in the end, it leaves the autonomy bit. Okay, so you can decide, do you want an apple or a chocolate after dinner? Like this. So, and you can decide tomorrow, are we going to play this or that? So the job of your children is to feel their emotions. So no problem with them being upset, no problem with them being angry. But here is where the learning for the parents come in. Because many of us, I don't know how you feel, but many of us, we have problems with our own feelings. So the emotions that we have are not all validated by ourselves. I might be okay with anger, but I'm not okay with sadness. Or the other way around. It's okay for me to cry and to be weak and helpless, but it's not okay for me to be assertive. It varies. People are different. So it actually starts with, latest when children are going to high school or to higher grades, you will get challenged.
I'm sure.
They will trigger your feelings like there's no tomorrow. They know the piano of your emotionality and they play with it. Not with a mean, they don't want to tease you, but they do because they know you.
Yeah.
And for us as parents to be aware of our own triggers, where are we not so healed? Where do we get this gut reaction? It's a good idea. And then to process this with our partners or with other adults and not to let our anger out on the children or to make a drama about our children disobeying us or whatever, but to understand that they need to challenge us to know what's safe and what's not. And they need us to be able to regulate, or sometimes when we lose our shit, then to come back and say, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. You know, I was a bit too upset. I said this is not okay. And then to repair, you know, we as parents, of course, sometimes we get triggered, but then we have to come back and say sorry. And this way they learn it is human to have emotions. It's human to get triggered. It's human to lose control. And what we need to do as good humans is to come back and make up and repair. This is what they're learning. So puberty is the very interesting phase where everything that you've learned so far gets cast out of the window and we try anew. So if your children hit puberty and they are not rebelling and they are not challenging you and they are not upsetting you, then something's wrong. Because children in that phase, they are training the adult muscle. They are training to be themselves. So they challenge you. So do you think that is okay? These values? I don't think so. You know, and they need to feel it.
Yeah.
And if you are regulated in yourself, you can be cool about it and say, okay, this is my value. You tell me about yours. You know, I'm curious. I really want to know. And to respect your children means you listen to them. You are attuned to where they are in life. And you might have a toddler and a kid in middle school and a teenager or puberty person, and you have to be attuned with all of them. They are in different stages, you know, and to know what your children are going through at the moment. Maybe there's a lot of sibling fighting. Maybe there's some, you know, friendship falling apart at school or something. To know where your children are at the moment, to be attuned to their state, and then support them when necessary, and otherwise be the cradle, the safe haven for them to come back to when shit hits the fan. This is the important bit. So not to snowplow for your children, not to take all the difficulties out of the way, and not to helicopter them and micromanage everything they do, but to let them, from the grounded safe haven of your family, your relationship with your child, let them venture into the world, make their mistakes, get their bloody knees, and come back and get a plaster and a kiss and support. And, well, I think when you are attuned to your own emotionality, to your inner guidance system of intuition, then raising children is an amazing adventure. But when your own system is kind of like knotted, it can be quite challenging.
Of course. What do you think it's main goal of parenting for you personally and maybe from a professional point of view?
I think a good parent is like a guide.
Yeah.
You know, somebody like a guardian angel. It's somebody who is a safe haven for the children, but not walking in front of them.
Yeah.
You know, but being there as a support. Okay, in the first 7 years of their life, they need to learn a little bit about life. You know, they need to know what's safe, what's not. They learn the basic rules, but they don't learn it by what you say. They learn it by what you do. So they are watching you. So a good guide is somebody who goes by example. So you are living your values and your children are observing. So how do you deal with other people? How do you treat another person? How do you treat animals? How do you treat the planet? They watch you and they copy paste. And they also copy paste your trauma. So if you don't want to pass it on, it's a great idea to sit on the bench with your own feelings and your own healing so that your children have a chance to grow up in a healthy way. And healthy children don't need a lot, but nature and support and love.
Nice. I really loved what you mentioned last time, that each person should start within him. Or
Yeah.
So, and I'm always like quite interested about cognitive biases, excuses, why people doesn't start this journey.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They want the best for their kids,
Yeah.
but they're missing the will to change something within them. For example, with your workshop. It's
Yeah.
really for a reasonable price, but I can see still a lot of excuses why to join it, why to change something.
Yeah.
There was last year here, there was a huge debate and discussion about physical punishments, and a lot of parents had excuses or tendencies that they were hit at home and nothing happened. So, what do you think it's behind it? Maybe in the position of parent, how to be a little bit more aware of my own blind spots and how to navigate in this position or role of parent.
I think there's a lot of confusion out there. What is good parenting? This is why I loved your question. What is good parenting? Because there's so much conflicting information. You know, that so many books and guidelines and things. What people have lost is to trust their own inner guide, their inner intuition. They have lost it because there's so much screaming on the outside what's right and what's not. There's so many people claiming truth and to be right that we get confused. And the aim of marketing is actually to disconnect us from ourselves so that you can be sold something, whatever that is. Maybe values, maybe politics, maybe stuff that you need to buy. But what happens here is that we lose the contact to ourselves, and that leaves us deeply insecure. So when I'm not connecting to myself, to my inner guidance, to my own grounded awareness, to my own inner security, then I'm left clueless. And then that insecurity that I'm experiencing is very unpleasant. So I'm looking around for certainty, for security, and then I'm holding on to something, and then I'm defending that. And I think this is what's happening in a lot of people, and it certainly happened with me when I was young. I was in a constant state of survival. I was feeling threatened by everything out there, by people, by life. And I was in such a defense mode, in such a survival mode, that I was not connecting to my own intuition. I was deeply disconnected from knowing who I am and what is my truth, and from these little, it's little hints that I'm getting from the inside. As a healed person, you get a hint, watch here, look there, do that. But I did not have this inner compass. I didn't have this inner guidance. Okay. And I think a lot of people are now trying to do the right thing, and they believe this is right, and they're defending against everything else. And with our workshops, let's be honest, for a lot of people, the own emotions feel threatening. So when you are not at peace with your own pain or with your own anger, to go somewhere and to feel your emotions is like absurd. Why would you?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel good.
Yeah. But I always hope that maybe the children would be good motivations for them. You know what I mean?
Yes, but if that includes facing something that so far I felt was unfaceable, because this is why I put up defenses. If I experience something as a threat, I will not go there.
Yes.
So if I experience feelings as something out of control and threatening, I will not go there. I will try to dampen them. But they don't do it on purpose. Like I grew up in a home where the parents were volatile and angry a lot. So for me, anger was like, and I was not liking anger in other people. So I was trying to appease situation, appease people. But that costs a lot. When you are a peacemaker, when you are a people pleaser, you lose yourself. So I thought there were good and bad emotions, and I thought I knew what is good and what is bad, but I didn't, because I simply was trying to protect myself from the feelings of other people and from my own feelings, because there is discomfort in feeling. They don't feel good. Anger feels hot, chilly, rumbling, something in the other. It doesn't necessarily feel good. Being sad feels also not good. It's stinging, it's like a hole, it's like oof, and your body falls. It doesn't feel good. But it's very important because it's a piece of information that tells us what's happening out there. But a lot of people are so disconnected from their feelings. They were so conditioned out of them that for them it doesn't make sense. So for them, they they are not supporting the feelings in the children because they don't know what to do with them.
Yes.
They think a happy child, a peaceful child, a child that is not angry is a good child. It's not, because our children need their anger to know where their boundaries are. So if you have an angry child that is demanding something and being angry that TV is off or whatever it is, or mobile phone is over, then acknowledge that the anger is there and say, I love you when you're angry. I love you with your anger. I love your anger. Your anger is very necessary. It tells you what you want. And screen time is over.
Yeah.
So acknowledge the feeling, keep the love and the connection to the child, but hold your boundaries. One is not like the other. And people confuse that. They think children should not feel something. No, they should. It's your job to hold the boundaries, and it's the child's job to feel the feeling. Okay? And you validate the feeling, they do their job, and you do your job, which is knowing what's good and what's not good for your child. So this disability to be friends with the own emotions and the own behaviors and triggers and whatever is sometimes what causes our discomfort with the emotions of our children. And that mistake that they should not feel this way, they should not behave that way. A good girl doesn't cry, a good boy doesn't do that. It's like,
Okay. Time is running, so let's move to some specific questions from our audience. What do you think that are the biggest challenges children currently facing in school, homes, in families, and especially because you have some kind of comparison to you're quite experienced, you were in South Africa, so if you could also elaborate.
I'm not sure about the Czech Republic, but in Germany, my husband is a teacher.
Okay.
What children are still lacking, or lacking even more now after the pandemic, is healthy connection, healthy support. A lot of families don't have this, how can I say, warm human support system that is a guidance for the children. A lot of children are under parented in the sense of they get too much.
Yeah.
They are supported with material wealth and with free time and everything else, but they are under parented when it comes to guidance, boundaries, that. So a lot of children have difficulties feeling themselves and making decisions. So they don't know what they want to do with their life. Some parents are very authoritative, so they say this is your path and this is how you do it. But a lot of parents just leave them, and this is good for the children. They need to decide themselves, and they can't because they don't feel what's best for them. It feels like luxury when you have a lot of freedom and you have your iPhone and you've got your friends and you can do what you want. But then it leaves you clueless. So a lot of kids now, they can't feel themselves anymore and they don't know where they want to be. So at the moment in Germany, it's a lot about, okay, how do I find my path? How do I know who I am and what to do with my life? They feel like, okay, I need to know now. I need to have a plan when I'm 17. Do I go to university and what happens for the next 50 years? But that's not how life works. It's about really feeling yourself, getting to know yourself, and then somebody who supports you to really nourish what you're good at, nourish your intuitions, your resources. So when you look at your child with open heart, you know what they're good at and you know what they struggle with. And to support them with the struggle and to support them with what is a challenge for them. And on the other hand, allow them to explore and to widen in what is of interest for them without necessarily knowing what kind of profession is that going to be. Because I want to see that person that started with 16 with the profession and kept it till 90. Usually we develop, and this is what we can support children with.
I think that especially nowadays it's almost impossible because of AI, artificial intelligence, automatization, that that it's so turbulent that it's unpredictable.
It's
know.
very unpredictable. Yeah.
So for me, it's much more about to developing some kind of inner compass.
Yes.
And I mentioned it during the last interview that, for example, for myself, I cannot imagine that I would come to my parents, grandparents for some advice about the career.
Mm-hmm.
So you are talking a lot about supporting and to get know what's going on in the life of your kids. Would you? Is there any borderline? What's still, let's say, normal? What's how to distinguish between normal teenage moods and more serious problems, especially with teenagers, because last year there was published quite famous research from Czech Republic that 1/3 of youth are has some kind of serious mental problems, issues, depression, thinking about suicides. So still, it's quite a big issue here.
Yeah, it is unfortunately a really big issue because, again, I can only speak for Germany, but I have got a bit of a suspicion that it could be similar here. There is a disconnection in the people to themselves.
Of course.
And depression is a big sign of being disconnected to your own life force, to your own feelings. So it's almost like you're using numbness to get away from the discomfort of what you're feeling and who you think you are, without knowing who you are really. So yes, there is a rise in these kinds of challenges. And also, I think because of the many, many, many options that youth have, there's a disorientation. So there's so much available. How do you decide? And what helps us decide are our feelings, our emotions, our inner guidance systems. And when this inner guidance system is appropriate and has grown up with regulated parents, with fathers being present, with mother being present, okay, with a couple maybe even having a relationship, then our internal guidance system is well tuned. But unfortunately, because we have so many parents that are not well tuned with their own guidance system, they are not well tuned in the relationship. They don't have a lot of time with their children where it is free time, play time, hanging out time, where you can really feel and connect. The internal guidance systems of the youth can be quite disturbed, and that leads to, well, all kinds of addictions and looking in weird places for some inspiration, for some meaning, some purpose. Who am I? So I think this starts with the parents, because if you want to assist your children, you need to be able to first feel what's going on. To be able to regulate a feeling, you must feel it first. So, yeah.
So, for example, if you imagine that you would watch this interview, realize what's going on in your place, what should be the first steps or how to approach your kid and start this kind of supportive interview? Or
so validation is the key.
Validation.
So that I say yes to your experience and that I'm not trying to fix you, not trying to change you, but I'm signaling I love you, I accept you exactly as you are. I validate your feeling. This is what you're feeling, yes. And I'm glad that you share with me. Do you want support? Because very often our children don't need to know what to do now, but they simply need to feel us sitting on the bench with them. So can I hold space for you in this? Can I be with you and still love you, although you're angry, lost, depressed, sad, suicidal? So it's tough. It can be tough. And because you were asking earlier, how do you know the difference? When you are attuned to your children, when you watch them grow up, you will feel the difference between a mood and something that is very serious, because you feel it in your own being. You get scared when you notice somebody is losing the will to live. And when you have a relationship to your children, or maybe you have to establish it where you're sharing openly, it has to start with you. So you cannot just sit down and be all adult and say, okay, tell me what's going on. It's probably not going to work. But what can work is that you sit down and you start with, I love you, and I'm concerned. I'm scared. I don't know what's going on. I see you. It feels as if, fill in, it feels as if you are really, really sad. Can I support you? And then share more often in your own life, because the typical question, child comes home from school, how was the day? Good. Bang, bag gone, door closed. Why don't you turn it around and you say, whoa, I'm so glad you're home. I missed you. I was doing this and that and feeling this and that and da 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 da. And you? Nobody does that, do you?
I'm trying my best. Not always it works.
Yeah, once we realize we do that, because it's a two-way street, the connection, and to really be interested and curious about the life of your children and everything they are feeling, and validate it, say yes to that experience, and okay, who are your friends? What do you love about them? What's interesting about that sport? I saw you watching soccer a lot. Do you want to go play? Like something like this. So take an interest, be curious, and come from an emotional point of view. Very often we're trying to give a solution, we're trying to change the feeling of our children, but what we are not doing is we are not sitting in the discomfort of being in their situation. But that's what we as humans are craving, somebody who's able to hold space with us. So if something happens in your life, you run to your loved one and you say, oof, I feel whatever, this is going on. And you don't want to hear, oh yeah, now you do this and now you do that. You do not want to hear this. You want to hear, I'm with you. I get it. Phew.
And for example, if you would look at it from other side, from the point of view of kid or child, teenager, who would realize that the family environment wouldn't or wasn't optimal, doesn't feel an interest or support, what can they do? Or how to also, it comes to my mind the question how to accept parents as they are, how to forgive them, and how the process to heal yourself should or not should
could look like. Well, I actually have to say this. It sounds a bit like marketing, but my daughter Zoe, that we were speaking about earlier, she's actually giving a seminar with the same kind of work, just a weekend, for teenagers. So for anybody who hits puberty, however old they are, 14 is enough. But whenever they hit puberty and they feel like they are in that transition stage up to 30. And what she does there is she really creates this safe place where the youth can express themselves, when they can really connect and feel on a different level, on a deeper level. Because in puberty, you're not really interested in these parents, and to forgive your parents, you actually need to also feel that they are sorry,
And when they are not, because I know a lot of people who build their stories, about themselves, blaming parents or the society, etc., etc. So what to do if it's this case when the parents?
Well, there is a lot of help for people who are really seeking to let go of their emotions and the grief, and there is techniques, there is therapy that helps youth and adults to forgive. So it's really important. But what's the first step is to actually also be aware of what you're feeling, because yes, you are blaming your parents for whatever happened, and then looking at yourself and saying, okay, this happened, I lost my leg, kind of, but how do I move on forwards? So how can I now be my own best parent when you are old enough? Okay, I'm not talking about school kids, but when you hit puberty or young adults, it's really about, okay, maybe mommy didn't, maybe daddy did, whatever. Okay, but how can I do that for myself now? So how can I be my own best parent? And then eventually, sometimes we get the courage to go back to our parents and say, look, I feel like this. Can you please? And ask our parents directly, not with a lot of explanation, but a simple request, or setting a boundary if it's necessary. I will not be spoken to like this, or I leave the room, that kind of thing. Because the corporal punishment that you mentioned earlier, that is an issue. Because when I'm supposed to be loved by somebody who's at the same time hitting me, how does my system compute this? How does that make sense? I'm not talking about playful banter and
Yes,
joking. I'm talking about physical punishment.
Yeah.
It doesn't compute.
If I know that in Czech, it's the case in, I think, 60-70% of families that they are using like physical punishments.
Yeah.
Even the minister, I think, of I don't know, labor or someone like this, like validating physical punishment. So, what happened when there are these contradictory signals from this environment?
Usually, what happens is people resort to physical punishment if they don't see any other chance of teaching. But a person who is connected to that child is a totally different kind of leader to that person. So if I'm a guide to my child, if I'm connected to my child, there is not this big issue with disrespect that I would have to resort to physical punishment. I usually only encounter physical punishment or the urge to give a slap when I'm out of order, when I'm so triggered that I'm so angry that, the slips. And I think with every of my children once. Zoe claims twice, but I'm not too sure. Still discussion. But it happened, once they painted the whole couch in the living room, and that was like, not a good idea. And the thing is, it's not okay, because what you're doing in this moment, you are inflicting pain, but how does the child learn in that situation? Because you have lost your frontal lobes, you are boom in survival mode, and now you're hitting your child, boom, they are in survival mode. Okay, something stops, but no learning is happening. So you have to come back and pick up the learning. You have to pick up the pieces. Okay, about the situation earlier. I'm sorry I hit you. And what is the rule in the situation? What happened here? Can you tell me how you felt? Checking in and seeing, okay, what led to the situation? Not with establishing I was right to hit you, but to say, okay, how can we do better next time? How can we be so clear about the rules that we don't need to hit each other? And sometimes we have to negotiate rules, okay? Sometimes we have to adapt them because we are growing, children are growing.
Yes.
They need different timelines, they need different things.
Did you have any like defined rules in your home with the kids?
Say again?
Did you have any like defined rules?
Of course.
Yes.
Of course. So we had, for example, once our children were going out but not being adults, there was the rule that you have to be at home by a certain time. So in the early days it was 9 o'clock, and then it was 10 o'clock, and then it was whatever. And the second rule was, if you are not at home by that time, you phone. Okay? Yes. You have to phone before, or we'll go and find you. And what we also established, but this was something because we were watching the children with their peers, because of course they were going out, whatever nonsense they are doing. But we said, make sure that you are responsible for each other. So when you see your friend having a beer too many, call their parents or call us, okay? And we will make sure that they are safe, because this is about safety. Because it's not safe to be out there drinking and doing nonsense. It's not safe. So we were telling, okay, you will not get scolded, you will not get embarrassed other than your own shame, but call us, call for help when there is a situation that you feel dodgy about. And we had that situation that we got called to fetch another children from the disco, and we had the same situation, somebody calling us to fetch our girl. So, hey, things happen, but make sure that they know where to go and what to do. And they were looking after each other. So we were very happy to watch of course they do nonsense, but it's a different level when you are still taking care of each other, making sure that you know what's safe and what isn't. And yes, you stretch. Yes, you do nonsense. And you need to know when it is enough, and then how to make up and how to go back and say, okay, I messed that one up. That wasn't so cool. Because that's what they have to learn. They have to be responsible for themselves and their actions. So how do you learn responsibility if you don't have room to wiggle? You know, you have to try it out. Okay, that wasn't a great idea. So that really didn't work well. And then you have to try again. But if I'm scolding them and shaming them and doing whatever, I can sit with them. I think with every single one of our children, we were laughing about what they were doing. They were themselves embarrassed, like I did this and that happened, and we were like, because you know it from your own youth.
Yeah,
I mean, I had a youth, I know. So, yeah, but you know, to actually establish the rules with them. So, how do you feel safe? So, who do you want to call when something happens? Okay.
We always advise parents to have some safe word.
Yes,
That
safe
if
word,
the kid
absolutely.
mention it or say that,
Yes, on the
without any
phone.
questions, you come
Yeah.
and
Pick me up.
pick me up. And
Yeah.
also, I know it from my daughter, which sometimes,
Mhm.
for example, she visits some friends.
Mhm.
She doesn't want to tell in front of them when I'm calling to her that she would
Yeah.
like to me to come to
Yeah.
pick her up.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of like tips how to
Yes,
create some
create
safe
these
place.
sentences and safety.
Yeah.
And also what my other daughter does when she started dating, and sometimes she was using apps, she would send us her, what's that called on Google Maps?
GPS?
Yeah,
No,
where she
position.
is,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
position.
yeah, yeah.
So she was sharing her
Yeah,
where she
yeah.
is. So she didn't feel like this is micromanaging or something. She just wanted
Yeah,
somebody
yeah,
to know
yeah.
where she is.
Nice, nice. And not so long time ago, here was not so nice incident. It was shooting in
At the university.
at the university, and we focus a lot on prevention.
Yeah.
And always we see behind each act of violence some kind of frustration, and so there's also some tendencies to approach well-being and mental issues on systematic level on elementary school, high schools, universities. So my question is, how do you perceive this? If you would be able to add some subject to the schools, what it would be, and
Life skills.
Life skills. Okay, how it would look like.
I think, I don't know how your schools are here in the Czech Republic, but in South Africa, where we were living when our children were small, life skills was a part of the curriculum. So you would learn about your body and hormones, you would learn about communication, you would learn about emotions, you would learn about values, and you know, because religion is not a big thing anymore. So values have to be raised into awareness. So what are your values? What are you living by? And life skills also for me definitely include knowing how to regulate your nervous system, knowing how to regulate your emotions, knowing what to do when you are overwhelmed, when trauma is happening. Because trauma is not what is happening, like that incident at the university. For a lot of people, it was potentially traumatizing. It was traumatizing for some, but not for others because they were supported. The difference is when that event happens, it's not how big it is and what is happening, but trauma is what happens to the nervous system afterwards. When you get stuck in this activation, in this overwhelm, when you get triggered every time you hear this or that. So when it reactivates that. And when people are supported in big things, they don't need to stay as trauma. Yes, they were a big event. Yes, it was overwhelming. Yes, it was a serious tragedy. But it doesn't have to be a wound for the rest of your life. And these life skills I would put into school. And it's not very difficult, you know. Children learn easily about emotions because they are very close to them still. You know, they don't have a problem with that. Why would they? They only have a problem when they notice that adults have a problem with that. So I think emotional education needs to be really in the schools, and then you fix the mental health issue at the same time, and you fix the behavioral issues at the same time, because people that feel full and fulfilled and connected, they don't have a reason to misbehave that way. Usually, when we see people who have serious acts of misbehavior, there is some emotional pain in the background. And I believe this young man was from a dysregulated, dysfunctional family with a traumatic background. I believe. I'm not too sure. But I yet have to see a murderer or somebody who's doing serious crime that has no trauma in the background.
I perceive it much more like suicide, and he wants to
Yeah.
take as many people as
Yeah.
he can. I was interested in what you were mentioning about drama, that it's what happened after the
Yeah.
event in roles of parents, teachers, maybe trainers. Uh, it happens quite often that we are with kids and the youth when they are experiencing something like this. How to help them minimize damage, or you know what I mean, how to overcome some difficult times or specific events,
Yeah.
breakups, I don't know,
Yeah.
some accidents like this. That,
It's it's difficult to put into one sentence, but if I would have to boil it down into one word, it's connection.
connection.
So when you offer somebody who is going through a tough time, a loss of a person, some illness, some divorce or something, when you offer them connection, not in the sense of holding them all the time, but being a safe place, a regulated presence where they can be as emotional as they want, as pissy as they want, as troubled as they want, and you stay regulated. You are there. Not necessarily talking a lot,
Yeah.
but being with them and validating the experience. Say, wow, can't imagine how that feels. It's tough. How is it? Well, that sucks. Really name it. That sucks. And be with them. And often when we can't stand the emotions of others, it is because we can't stand them in ourselves. So if we are with somebody who's grieving, we feel our own grief and loss, and this is why we don't want to be with them. And this is why we want them to feel better.
Yeah.
But not many people actually dare to sit with them, cry with them, be with them and say, this is shit.
There's this concept of like emotional scale,
Mm-hmm.
and that it's good to move from the scale.
Yes.
That's quite similar to what you teach from my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
In a lot of cases, I see that the people has the tendency to calm down, not
Yes.
cry, and
Yeah.
it will be okay. But from my experience, it's good sometimes to even, how to say it, give the space for crying and let it go. Yeah.
Of course, especially when like that incident at the university, all emotions are involved. There is fear of this unbelievable thing happening. There is anger. How could he do that? There is loss. I lost a friend or something. I lost my feeling of safety. So of course you go through all the layers of emotions, and they are not necessarily strictly divided. I'm sad now and I'm angry tomorrow. Very often they are a wild mix, and people go from one to the other very quickly. And for me to be with that and to hold space for that can be a challenge, because I want them to feel better. But comfort is sometimes not really assisting and helping, but it's not helpful, it's not assisting the person. To comfort can also mean to say it's okay to be sad, it's okay to be blimmin' angry, and then to cry, because crying releases and resets and rebalances the nervous system. And sometimes even expressing anger, really like using words that you would normally not use, with permission, and say, do you really want to vent it now? Shall we just do something with the anger? And then this year, have a physical expression of it, so that your nervous system realizing, okay, I have accepted the emotion, I'm doing something with it. Like saying it sucks. That shit.
How can yoga or mindfulness be integral part of supporting people in these, or that's from my point of view what you are doing, trying to give body space to do what's natural for it?
Yeah. Well, I'm a huge fan of mindfulness or presence. Mindfulness is whatever. I would love to call it being here and now.
Okay.
Because very often we are not present. We are still at work when we're talking to our children. We are so worried about what they did yesterday. We are worried about their future. So we are rambling, but we are not with them here now. So parents need to learn how to actually be present. And that being present means I am with the experience while it is happening. That includes my sensory awareness of, okay, I'm getting tense. Okay, I'm being hot here, or I've got a lump in my throat or something. What do we call this experience? Sadness or anger when it's heat. And and then being with it doesn't mean I need to express it and I need to hit a pillow or so. No, it means being with this while it is happening and keep on breathing. And when you learn a couple of regulation techniques, it becomes easier. So it becomes self-regulating. But this will also teach our children how to be with themselves. And this is, I guess, what they need. They need to learn how to be with their own experience, how to be present, because only then can they notice these subtle hints, this intuition guiding me to do something or be somewhere. And if you want your children to feel safe in life and safe with other people, they need this. They need to feel what's happening. So they need to be here to be able to know what's happening.
Nice.
Yeah.
So most of the time, what impact you would like to have on the world?
I would really love to inspire everybody to be human. Because we're trying so hard to be everything else, but to be real, to be human, to be connected with each other as we were built by nature, that for me would be fantastic.
Nice. Where can people find you?
Well, there's a website called Trassl.z,
Okay,
and I think all the information about seminars and everything is on there.
perfect. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
Thank you.
your attention. And I just gonna recommend to come to some of your events, and we will put all the links to the events in the subscription and to the email.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.